Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Shannon Caraveo. I'm the Director of Undergrad Admissions out here at Point Loma in San Diego. Excited to be joining you this afternoon/evening, coming to you from my garage office. This virtual background is probably a dead giveaway, but I'm thankful that you folks took the time out to join us, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about choosing a college. Please don't hesitate to ask questions throughout. We've got our colleague Andy from NACAP who's here fielding questions, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end to answer questions as we go through. But wanted to just chat with you a little bit tonight about questions you should be asking when choosing a college. And when you're considering a college, the college search or choosing a college is really a lot more of a journey than it is a destination. I know there's a lot of pressure on you as students to have your top choice or your top three choices when you're looking at colleges. But I'm here to tell you it's so normal to have many choices and a top choice that changes and a list that grows and shrinks and grows and shrinks. The arriving at your top choice college or arriving at your college choice is a point in this really long journey, and you're somewhere along the spectrum at any point. But I understand this process is so pressure filled and pressure laden. I just want to reassure you, if you're not sure what your college choice is or even where to start in this process, you are absolutely not alone. And that's a little bit what I want to talk about tonight, kind of what you can ask and what you can ask yourself and what you can ask colleges when you're starting this journey at whatever point you're on. So some questions to ask yourself when considering the types of colleges that you want to apply to. First of all, what am I interested in doing after college? And this is helpful whether you've chosen a major or not, but maybe especially helpful if you don't have a specific major in mind. Kind of take a step back, think about what you want your life to look like after college. Not necessarily only your career, although that plays into it, but what do you want to be spending your time doing? Where do you want to be in the world? Do you want to be abroad? Do you want to be doing missions work? Do you want to be a lawyer? What do you want to be doing after college? And considering that, that will really help you to understand a bit more of the types of institutions you can be looking at. Secondly, what learning environment is right for me? That's a tough question. So to kind of get to the basis of that, ask yourself a few questions. In what learning environment am I most comfortable right now? Where am I comfortable? What do I like about my current learning environment? Current may be the wrong word to use. I know many of you are in kind of atypical learning environments right now, but thinking about the majority of your education so far, what do you like about your learning environments? Do you like being able to ask questions of a teacher when you're not sure what's going on? Do you like to sit in the back row and not really get noticed? What are you comfortable in your current learning environment? And what makes you uncomfortable? What do you wish you would change? And that follow-up question, or on the inverse, what about my current learning environment really is not meeting my needs? And again, that can be something as simple as, I want to get noticed. I want to be in direct communication with a teacher or a professor, and I can't right now. Or even something a little bit more personal, like my current learning environment makes it really hard for me to enjoy lunch because I have dietary restrictions that are not met. Those kind of learning environment questions can, again, really help you set the stage for the types of institutions you want to look at. And then my favorite question to ask our applicants, even at Point Loma, is when you're thinking about college in general, no matter where you go, no matter what you study, just college as an experience, what are you most excited about? What are the things that bring you life? What are the things that bring you joy when you think about college? Is it something as simple as meeting lifelong friends? If so, good news, every college is going to be open to you when you're looking at college choice. Is it something like connecting with faculty? If that's really important to you, if that's what you're really excited about when you think about college, then look for environments and learning environments where you have direct access to faculty, where you won't be learning from TAs, where you'll be learning from experts. Is growing in your faith a priority when you're considering college? If so, of course, faith-based institutions are a great place to start. But even in looking at larger public schools, make sure you look at schools that have an intentional faith community that you'll be able to access that's not going to be an inconvenience for you. Is experiencing a new culture or area or climate really exciting to you? If so, that can shape kind of the region or the area that you're looking at when you're looking at colleges. So really, as you're starting this process, I would say spend some time being introspective, talk to family members, and just look inside yourself and think, what is working for me now? What do I want to change? And what's really exciting for me? Because honestly, college is the chance to step out and really get into an environment that you're excited about. When you hear or when you read about questions to ask colleges, I'm assuming you probably have already seen these. If not, I'm sure you will. These basic 3 questions, and then I threw in an extra one. But the basic 3 questions that every college campus visit literature piece says to ask when you're going to check out a college is, do they have my major? Can I get in? Can I afford it? And then I threw in a fourth. Does this feel right to me? We hear all the time, I stepped onto your campus and it felt right. And that's something I want to talk about a little bit more later. But I'm here to say that the basic 3 questions really aren't so basic. Do they have my major? Seems like a yes or no. I can rule out a college. They don't have my major. But a few things to consider. Areas of study can have more than one name. I'm thinking of one specifically at Point Loma, teacher education. If you want to be a teacher at any level, teacher education is probably what you'd search for. But in my years at Point Loma, I've been there for 16 years now, that major specifically has been called teacher education, liberal studies, and is now called cross-disciplinary studies. And they have so many great reasons for changing the name of the major, but I'm guessing that you as a student who wants to be a teacher is not Googling Point Loma cross-disciplinary studies, because that's not necessarily intuitive. So if you were to search PLNU teacher education, you may not find anything. You may assume that Point Loma doesn't have your major, and that wouldn't be accurate. So keep that in mind when you're looking for majors and areas of study. Also, many career paths have more than one major path. You don't have to be a pre-law major to go to law school. You don't even have to be a pre-med student to get to med school. We just had an art major graduate at Point Loma and go to med school and is doing really well. So there are a lot of different careers and a lot of different ways to get to those careers via major. So keep that in mind. That can I get in, the quintessential admissions question. I would encourage you to realize that an average admitted student profile is not the same as a minimum requirement to apply. And we'll talk a lot more about that as well. But I cannot tell you how many students I've talked to that see an average profile of an admitted student at Point Loma and think, I'm not that student, I'm not going to apply. And that student may have been admitted and may have done really well. And then can I afford it? Again, we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail, but I just want you to know the sticker price is not everything. It's easy, especially with private schools, especially with faith-based colleges, to see that sticker price and be completely overwhelmed. I know I was when I was looking at colleges and think, there's no way, who can afford this? Certainly not me. And again, it seems like it's a yes or no question, but it rarely is that simple. So diving a little bit deeper, considering those academic questions. So instead of asking, do they have my major? A few things you can ask. What's the best area of study for my career goal or interest? So starting at the end, again, saying, this is what I want to do with my life, whether it's a specific path, I want to be a nurse, or a specific interest, I want to serve people abroad. Asking admissions officers and folks connected to a university, what's the best area of study for that, can really be enlightening, can really be eye-opening, because again, you may become aware of a major that you didn't even know existed. That's a key funnel for that career path you're interested in. And the only way to know is to dive a little bit deeper. Another question is, how do you help undeclared students choose a major? So of course, many students come into college without a clear sense of a major that they want to pursue. But I'm also here to affirm, even if you are confident in your major, applying to and starting at the university of your choice, more than half of freshmen in the United States change their major at one point or another. So knowing from the get-go, if I am completely unsure of what I want to study, what do you have to support me? Will I be out there on my own, just taking general eds and seeing what fits? Are there counselors? Are there sessions available for students like me who may not know exactly what they want to do? Just asking a question like that really illuminates the support structure that's available academically. And academic support is key, whether you're already a high achieving student or whether you're a student that knows you'd like a little additional help academically. That academic support is absolutely a crucial role in looking at college. I would also encourage you to ask about graduation rates. And there are a few things that I want to highlight about graduation rates. So first of all, I put on that second bullet, IPEDS, IPEDS. That's a national collection service, a national data collection service that every accredited institution has to report into. So if you want to compare apples to apples and look at every college's national data, just Google it. IPEDS will show you there's an institutional lookup where you can check institutions and see all of the statistics that we have to report to remain accredited. So that's a great resource. I'm certain that colleges are not lying about their graduation rates, but sometimes they represent different graduation rates than what you're actually asking about. For example, if they have a large online student population and an in-person student population, sometimes they'll highlight the better of the two rates. So again, I'm certainly not pointing any fingers or saying any college is malicious, but iPads is just a great kind of equalizing resource to check out. So I would encourage you to bookmark that and compare data from every college you're considering. But one kind of key phrase that we always encourage our Point Loma applicants to consider is asking, of the students that graduate from your institution, how many graduate on time? How many graduate in 4 years? So that kind of disclaimer at the front is key, because the graduation rates that are reported account for every student that starts at that institution. So that graduation rate includes students that never graduate, students that drop out, students that leave and don't come back. That graduation rate can be a bit different than what you think you're actually asking. So I am assuming you, being a student who is watching a college prep seminar this evening, is planning on being a graduate, a college graduate. At Point Loma, I always tell my admissions counselors, we're not recruiting freshmen and transfers, we're recruiting alum. We want students who are going to graduate, so we are recruiting those students. So when we talk about our graduation rates, we always say, this is our published four-year graduation rate, but this is the graduation rate of the students who graduate from Point Loma. So of the students who complete, here's how many complete in 4 years. So would encourage you to ask them to make that distinction. Another couple of questions that will elucidate support, which again, I think is crucial, is what internships or clinicals are available? What's that practical hands-on component of your major going to be? And how do students get them? If the university has a program that comes alongside a student to help them get an internship, that's something that you want to know. If students often get internships in their hometown because of connections with friends and family, again, that's something you want to know going into things. And also, what resources are available to help students with these goals, with my goals? What resources are students like me able to take advantage of in considering this place for my academic home? So back to those admissions questions. Instead of asking, can I get in? A few questions to dive a little bit deeper. So first of all, are there specific course requirements to be admitted? This is a very basic question. Many colleges will say yes, and just as many will say no. So it's good to ask at the beginning. That again may not be an automatic no. For colleges with specific course requirements, there are almost always exceptions or appeals processes. So if you go to a very specific type of high school that has not followed a specific college track, then you can still apply for admission in various routes. But it's a great question to ask up front. And then these two questions I always suggest go hand in hand. In fact, when my admissions counselors answer one question, I always follow up to make sure that they're answering the other, even if it's not asked. So asking what the average admitted student profile looks like and asking what the minimums to be considered are as well. So at Point Loma specifically, our average admitted student has a little bit higher than a weighted 3.8 GPA, but our minimum to apply and to be considered is a 2.8 GPA. And every year we admit a number of 3.8 students, and we admit some 4.8 students, and we admit some 2.8 students, because we know that that GPA is not the only thing that matters. It's not the only indicator as to whether or not you're a good fit at Point Loma or whether you'll succeed in college. There's a reason. I mean, we set our minimums. There's a reason we set our minimum so much lower than our average. And it's because we want to catch students from all across the academic spectrum. We know you have a story, and you may be one of our most successful students who just had a really rough start in high school. So always ask those questions hand in hand. And then again, especially if you're concerned about your admission to the institution, asking, have students with my academic profile been admitted? And if so, what helped them stand out? Be direct, because admissions offices have this data. It's our whole world. So don't hesitate to ask direct questions. And then considering those financial aid questions, instead of just asking, can I afford this? Ask what the average net cost is. Every institution, especially private schools, especially faith-based private schools, have scholarships and grants that are widely accessible. So the average net cost is really different than the sticker price in almost every case. At Point Loma, 92% of our students pay less than our sticker price because of grants and scholarships. So ask what an average student actually pays instead of the sticker price. Another couple of more roundabout questions that can get to some key data that I think, again, is very important when considering college is what percentage of your students graduate with no debt, and what's the average debt load? So what does an alum from your institution look like stepping out into the world when it comes to debt? Some national benchmarking data to compare to: 69% of students who went to a four-year college or university in 2018 took on some form of debt. So it's pretty common for students to have student loans in some form. But the class of 2018 graduated with an average debt load of almost $30,000. And again, that's a high number. I can understand that number being intimidating, but knowing that that's the national average, what an average student who chooses a four-year college, public, private, Ivy, not, any college is considered, any accredited four-year college, I should say, is factored into this. Knowing that that's a benchmark is important as you look at your specific college choices data. And then one question that I always encourage parents specifically to ask, but students, this is important for you as well, is asking about the student loan default rate. This question is kind of atypical, but it shows some things that may not be easy to show otherwise. So if an institution's student loan default rate is high, and I'm sure you know the concept of a default rate, it's basically several years after graduating college, what percentage of students are successfully paying back their loans versus the percentage of students that have defaulted, that are not paying back their loans for whatever reason. So a high student loan default rate means a high number of students are not paying back their loans. And that can show you a couple things. First of all, it probably shows you that the institution is encouraging students to borrow unwisely. There are some institutions out there, again, you will not find them among our group of Christian colleges here. Thankfully, this is a great group, but there are some predatory colleges out there that will basically do whatever they can do to fill their class, even to the point of encouraging you as a student to take on more debt than you should or than you can pay back successfully. So the student loan default rate is a key indicator of that. It's also an indicator of what alum are doing when they graduate. If a student loan default rate is really low, if students are paying back their loans at a really high rate, if that student loan default rate is low, it generally can show you that alum are getting jobs, and those jobs have salaries that are competitive enough to allow them to keep up with their student loan payments. So two kind of key pieces of information that you get at in this non-traditional way with a question like this. So the national average is a bit misleading in this case. I wanted to put it out there so you could see it, but the national average for student loan default rate does include some for-profit colleges as well. So keep that in mind, take that with a grain of salt. I would say a 10% default rate is high. I would not be excited about a college that has a 10% default rate unless there was something glaring that they're not showing in their data. But keep that in mind, take that with a grain of salt. And this is also tracked on iPads. So continue to look in iPads and make those benchline comparisons. And then the general, does it feel right question. I think that question can be really valuable because there is something to be said for stepping onto a campus or interacting with folks from a campus, or even taking a virtual tour or interacting virtually with admissions reps and getting a sense for the environment. So I don't want you to not ask, does this feel right to me? But a few questions you can ask when you are interacting with the campus, whether you're physically there or not. How do students meet their core group of friends? I find that this is really telling, especially if you're talking to a student, a tour guide, or somebody that you're interacting with who's a student at that institution, because then you'll know, does this jive with how you as a student see your college experience going? If you're looking at a giant institution, but your student tour guide says, oh, I meet my friends everywhere, in the residence halls and in the dorms, I'm in a sorority and I meet students that way, you can kind of get a sense for what the community is like there. If you're looking at a really small institution and students say, oh, I know everyone here, so we're all connected. This is a place where you have familiar faces everywhere that you walk, whether you're eating in the dining hall or in the library. That basically allows you to get a sense for what the campus community is like socially. Also really encourage you to ask questions about support outside of the classroom. Academic support is very important, but I think another telling question is what support is available to students who are homesick and how would they access it? So whether you end up being that homesick student or not, asking a question like this will show you specifically what support structures are set up for students when they're struggling. How easy is it for students to fall through the cracks? And if the answer is, if a student's homesick, that student has to figure out where to go, that student has to raise his or her hand, that student has to make an appointment with, fill in the blank, you know that this is a great environment for a student who may be a bit more motivated, a student who's comfortable acting alone, who is ready to jump and take up these tasks on their own. If it's an answer that's a bit more, like our RAs are involved in our students' life, so they'll notice if you're a bit off, or our faculty do take attendance in class. So if you miss 4 classes in a row, they're going to reach out to you. It's an environment that will come alongside you as a student a little bit more. So there's not a better or a worse environment. Basically just shows you the types of environments that you're looking at for colleges. Another telling question I would say to ask is, what does a typical Saturday look like for your students? One thing I learned really quickly at Point Loma is asking what a typical Saturday looks like on campus is very different than asking what a typical Saturday looks like for students. So if you were to come visit Point Loma on a weekend, you would find that it's really quiet. Campus is not bustling on the weekends, but that's not because our students go home or are not connected. It's because on Saturdays and Sundays, our campus ministries are really active and involved all over San Diego. Student clubs meet on the weekends, again, on and off campus. We're right on the coast. Students are at the beach. Students go to concerts. Students are eating out. Again, in a much more typical fall, that would be a lot more accurate than it is right now. But typically speaking, ask what a Saturday looks like for students, not necessarily what a Saturday looks like on campus. What are students involved in? And is that community existing even off campus on the weekends? And then finally, I would say a telling question to ask is, how would your town or city, whatever college area you're looking at, how would those residents describe your students? So it's kind of an uncommon question. You may get a good off the cuff answer, which is always the goal, right? To get that authentic answer, not the admissions answer. But it's going to be telling, if the gut reaction is, those folks that live around us think our students are really loud. That tells you a bit about what campus and what the outside community is like. If the direct answer is, well, we hear all the time from folks looking for student interns from our nursing program, you get a good sense of what the reputation of students are in the area, in the surrounding area. One thing that I was really surprised about coming to be a part of the Point Loma community, there's a list a mile long of local families looking for babysitters from Point Loma. And again, if you're a parent, the folks that you want to watch your kids, you're looking for responsible, you're looking for low-key, you're looking for safe folks who will take care of your kids. And we have so many people that are looking to Point Loma for babysitters. So it's a funny but telling question to ask too. So it's a good one to keep in mind. I know that was a lot of information to throw at you in about 20 minutes. Thank you so much for hanging in there. This is my contact information. I would love the chance to connect with you more, but I believe Andy, our colleague from NACAP, is on and may have a few questions. If there are questions out there, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
Shannon, up to this point, there have not been any, well, there was one question that came in a private message that was wondering about if the slideshow deck would be made available to be shared with students.
Sure, I'm happy to share with NACAP and they can share accordingly.
Okay, perfect.
Good one. Well, if that's it, that's it. Like I said, I breezed through a lot and I know it's a lot to think about. So don't hesitate to reach out. I know I work for one institution, but I'm happy to talk to you about the process. I'm happy to walk you through in whatever way that I can. So don't hesitate to be in touch, and thanks so much for taking the time again to connect. Andy, anything else we should do before we hang up?
Well, I'm actually, so now within the last couple minutes, there have been a few that have come into the Q&A.
I love it. Yeah, we've got a few minutes.
So one question is, who should we ask these questions to?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would say to start with admissions counselors. Institutions, I mean, most institutions have admissions counselors. Institutions that are faith-based and small, like ours in this NACAP circle, will likely have a specific admissions counselor for your student. So it's either based on territory or major or last name. It's pretty easy, or it should be pretty easy, I should say, to find out who your specific admissions counselor is. But start there. And then I would say, especially if you're on campus, ask some current students questions like these. Getting that current student perspective can be super valuable.
All right, there's a couple Point Loma specific questions. One is, where's your school located? It sounds really fun.
It is so fun. We're right on the coast of San Diego, about 10 minutes from downtown. It's in a great spot.
Okay. Next PLNU question specifically, does Point Loma accept running start credits?
We do. Yeah, I would say most of our Christian college partners do. Running Start's a great program that allows your student to get ahead in college curriculum. So yes.
All right. Is this going to be a usual course, meeting with someone on campus and asking these questions?
That's a good question. I would say so. I mean, I think these questions are applicable in COVID land or otherwise. So whenever you're considering a college, I would say these are questions that you should at least consider in the process.
Okay. One last one that came out. Here's a couple. Does Point Loma have a nursing major?
We do. We've got a great four-year nursing program.
Okay. Do you ever admit students that have completed high school by passing the California High School Proficiency Exam?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I like these easy ones.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Any other outstanding or are we set?
Looks like the chat is, oh, well, one more came in.
I like it.
Do you have a track to become a nurse practitioner?
Oh, that is a good question. We don't specifically. We have a BSN program that's specifically for nursing students. And then we've got a great MSN and even a doctoral of nursing practitioners, but I don't think it's a specific undergrad track.
Okay. One last question here. If I don't know if you would know, but which school do you recommend for taking astronomy?
Oh, that's such a good question. I should know. I can tell you not Point Loma, unfortunately. We don't have that major,
Yes.
but oh, I'm sorry I don't know that one. That's a good one.
Let me chime in here real quick if I can. So if you go to myblueprintstory.com, there's actually a way that you can search schools by academic program. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can search, and one of those is by academic program. So if you're interested in astronomy, hop over to myblueprintstory.com and do a search that way.
Yeah, it's a great resource. I love it. Are we all set on questions?
I'm not seeing any more coming. Oh, another option for searching for schools in the virtual visit is to click visit college booths and then filter by major. So even there might be some schools in the virtual fair tonight that might be able to address the astronomy question. So
Smart. I'm sorry it's not us.
no problem. So all right, at this point, I am not seeing any additional questions.
Perfect. Well, this was great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Andy, and thanks to all of you for taking the time tonight. I hope we get to connect at some point in the future.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for everyone being
Yeah.
here.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.